So yeah, we're live now. So yeah, Rodney, we were talking earlier today about the advantages of being a second time founder, and really like the perspective that you have going around as a second time founder again. So yeah, let's hop into that. Let's hop into that subject because I think that's pretty interesting.
I think it's very interesting too. And what I think, starting with like what inspired us to talk about that earlier, was that I maybe like a week and a half ago, I saw Ryan Breslow from Bolt come out with a book called Fundraising. Anybody can get it on Audible or Amazon or whatever. It's a quick, short read. It's an hour. It's a really short book, straight to the point. Anyways, one of the things they talked about was just like team and, previous experience. And then I started to think about like what I see, for example, like online, especially like in Twitter spaces, and a lot of talk about second time founders and them getting backed often more times than first time founders. And I think that was something interesting that most people don't even realize, because I think as a founder, you originally have the impression that I only got one chance at bat. I only got one chance at bat. So this first chance, I better make sure like I win. And the reality is that that's actually not true. A lot of the people that invest in you are investing in your company, also invested in you. And so when they're along for your journey, and if you play things right, a lot of these people, will invest in you. And if they don't, you still have built your network up so much that oftentimes people are willing to help. And so you're at a further standing point. So that's just one thing as far as like fundraising, but there's many other things that come out of being like a second time founder.
Can you help?
I think for me,
no, I was going to say,
I think
Ryan Breslow, like who is that? Just so people have an understanding of the importance of that.
Yeah. Ryan is this young, in his late 20s, founder who works on a Bolt, which is a payment API system. There's more to it than that, but I'm not in that space. What I will say is that their competitor was Fast, and Stripe invested in Fast. Obviously, in hindsight, we see how Fast literally crashed into a wall, and they burnt through what was it, like $10 million a month or something like that, something crazy like per month. Like just
that's a crazy
ridiculous
story. We'll have to get into.
We
got
to
we'll have to talk about the Fast story.
It's crazy.
The scam of the century.
Yeah, scam of the century. Literally, this guy like came in and just like, and you know what? I saw the playbook from the jump. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not a genius. I'm just a guy that understood the playbook. And the reason why I did with Fast was because Fast had a lot of people from Uber, which is very similar to Bird. We had a lot of people from Uber. And so Bird got to a $1 billion valuation just in a similar way that Fast did. And so it was very clear to me that like people from Uber just move a certain type of way, But anyways, going back to Ryan, he's just this founder, young founder who people either love or hate him. I don't know why people hate this guy. He's a young guy doing amazing things. Just a young billionaire. And he's sharing his knowledge. And one of the books was Fundraising. And I think he has maybe a couple other books too, but that was the one I was interested in.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about the Fast story, now that we mentioned the founder? He was actually, I think, a second-time founder as well.
Okay.
He had started something else, I believe, in Australia. It was like a on-demand tow company or something like that he started and scaled that up, and then it kind of failed. And then he moved here to America and started Fast. So he was also a second-time founder. And so, look, to your point, like that gave him an advantage in fundraising because, I'm sure the speed in which he was able to move with Fast – no pun intended, was so much faster than probably the first company, because he had that prior success. So I think in general, definitely being a second time founder is helpful. But I also think like having an interesting background and doing something that is actually interesting and meaningful, it can also still give you an advantage, right? Whether it's like, doing something to research or working at some company on some interesting problem.
Yes.
I think what it really comes down to is just living an interesting life, or having interesting ways to connect with people. And then being able to take things from those experiences, the learnings that you have from those experiences, and being able to apply it going forward. Because I think about, that's what I've done as a second time founder, right? Like, there's things that I've learned about myself as a leader that I've been able to apply going forward. Things I've learned about how to build product.
For sure.
Things I've learned about how to raise money, right? Like, I remember the first time around, like, nobody would give me $10,000.
Yeah.
You know?
Had to fight
this time
for
around, raising hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars off of email. You know, it's a completely different. It's a completely different game right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that, just like, one, it's a completely different game off of experience, but also like the world ended up changing at an interesting time too with COVID. You know, because even now, like, the fundraising conversations are different. Like, you know, before, like, you would come in and you would actually be in a room with like like, it sounds crazy now to a lot of people, but that's what it was. You would come into a firm physically, and you was, you know, and pitch them. You know, it might be one, probably usually it would be like maybe two partners, and maybe an associate or something, you know, and every step of the way you were coming in, and now it's a Zoom game, which is interesting, right? Because there are disadvantages and advantages to that. The disadvantages are, for example, for people who are very personable, like for myself, I felt like when Zoom first came out, not when it first came out, but when fundraising first started being on Zoom and a lot of the work was on Zoom, I kind of felt like I was at a disadvantage, because when I was fundraising, you know, in person, I felt like I just had a certain type of energy that it was easy to like transfer over. I could get people excited in person way better than I could through like a computer screen. So I felt disadvantaged at first, you know, and that's just one thing. But later down the road, I started feeling more empowered, because I was able to take way more meetings way faster, and also people were more willing to meet with me. And so there was some advantages to that. But going to like back to one thing that Dre mentioned about second time founders, also, or just having like an interesting background, you know. So yeah, like me and Dre, we were both founders, and back when we were in Michigan, and but not only were we founders, we left to go to California and worked at early stage companies at various, you know, and so we had the founder experience of ourselves. We also worked at enterprise companies in Michigan, you know, that had been around for 50 plus years, you know, and then went to California, worked at these early stage companies, and, you know, all that gives you perspective. And when you talk and you tell those stories to people, they can't help but like to listen and like kind of get interested in, you know, your background, and that helps you, you know, sell your company and your stuff.
100%. And I think I'm actually really curious, as y'all, you know, have alluded to earlier, what are some of the things that you initially got wrong, you know, during your first founding experience, rather if it was across building product, you know, building a team, fundraising, like those key areas in the early days of building your company that you've seen improvement, you know, this second time around.
Yeah.
And like, what does that improvement actually look like? And what were some of the things you did to actually improve?
Dre, how do you think we should answer this question? Because like, for example, we could talk about like one of the first startups that we started was called Run. It was an automated delivery service for college students. So basically just Postmates or Eats or DoorDash. Before like any of that was like, everybody thought it was going to be everywhere. Like, you know, but then also we have early stage startups that we were like there at the early stages, and they got to, you know, hundreds of millions or $1 billion, you know. So I don't know what Dre's going to talk about, but I if I go all the way back to the Run experience, a lot has been learned because that was a while ago. I would say that one, Dre alluded to this in an earlier conversation, environment. Really realizing how important environment was. That was not clear to me as a first-time founder. As a first-time founder, I just believe that, I can make things work wherever I'm at. Wherever I'm at, I can make it work. It doesn't matter what my environment is like. I can make it work. And in hindsight, that was an arrogant way of thinking. It was thinking that I have more power than the ecosystem around me, and that's not how it works. You need people, you need resources, and me personally at least was getting in the way of myself by with that belief, and it wasn't malicious. It was just uninformed, and that was just one thing. I can go on a lot of things, but I'm sure like.
So when you say environment, let me just make sure I'm understanding. You're talking about like, are you talking about like the initial market that y'all targeted? Are you talking about like the ecosystem, including like VCs?
Yeah.
Like
we had the right. We definitely had the right market. We had the right market because we went to college. It really what it was. Dre one day.
What schools did y'all start at?
I went to Wayne State University for 1 year, and Dre was you're at Central, right?
Yeah, Central Michigan.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, Central Michigan is like what, 2 hours from Detroit?
Yep.
Yeah, 2 hours from Detroit, and Wayne State is like in downtown Detroit. Me and Dre had both. I forgot how far into college. Well, it couldn't have been that far because, like I said, I only went for a year. But I remember one day Dre called me. It was like one day Dre called me. It was like, hey, like, and he just had this idea, like, just he's like, what do you think? Like, what do you think about like if you could just get food delivered to you, like from like any restaurant around you? And I was like, what? I was like, obviously, like what? Yes, like from that moment, like that's when like it started. Like that's what started it. Like Jay just called me one day, like just told me the idea.
So you know what's crazy? Like even before that phone call,
yeah,
I had just got home from work.
Yeah,
and I was sitting down and I was getting ready to watch a TV show that had was coming on cable. Like it was like on ABC. And I wanted to order food. Like I didn't like it was live. It was literally a live TV show. So I couldn't pause the TV show at the time. Like it wasn't a way to pause it.
Was it Scandal?
And I'm like, it was Scandal. I was watching Scandal. I was watching Scandal, bro. And I'm like, I'm not about to pause it. I can't pause it. And I want to get food, but I'm like, I'm tired of pizza. That's literally all I can get. So like, that's all I can get. I'm like, this is wild. Like, why can I not get anything else? And that's when it clicked to me. And I was like, oh, this is obvious.
This is obvious.
This is back in 2013. This is back
2013.
2013.
It was
before the Uber Eats
before Uber Eats, yes. And all,
it was actually like the same year Instacart launched. Like this was even before grocery. Like everybody, this was at the start of like
the wars.
The start of on-demand delivery, right? Like the on-demand delivery that we know of right now literally started at that exact time when we were working on it. You know,
how
funny.
did y'all go about getting your first customers?
Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you. I'll happily tell you. So, but before I talk about the first customers, I want to get to answer the first question you asked about what we learned.
Yeah.
So I had a friend of mine who he just asked me that question. He sent me a text and he was like, "Hey, for the food delivery company, because he hosted like this founder call, just like five founders, very small, very intimate.
Nice.
And I kind of talked a little bit about my experience at Run and kind of just my product journey. And so after that conversation, he texted me. I was like, "Hey, for that food delivery company, why didn't it work?" This is like 2012, 13. Like, why didn't it work? That was like the perfect time.
Perfect idea.
And so the way I responded back to him was like, he asked, was it like too early? And I said, no, we were right on time, which is what I still kick myself about. I said it only failed because we stopped. That was the only reason why I failed.
I think a fact,
that's it.
Actually, yeah.
And then I told him, I said there were other factors that attributed to us stopping. For example, it was location. You know, we were building in Detroit. I truly believe if we were building that in like San Francisco, we were building it in Chicago, we were building it in a little bit of a more thriving city, like especially the type of product that we were building, I think we would have had a little bit of a different outcome. But then the other thing that I told him, which was more personal and just what I've come to learn after I've reflected on the experience, is that there's also just my inexperience as a leader and as an operator, right? Like I had a great vision. Like it was clear. Bro, Brylan, when I tell you, bro, it was crystal clear to me. Like I hear like VCs like from Sequoia, like from the top tier 1 VCs talk all about like some of the best founders having clarity of vision, clarity of thought. When I say it was so clear to me, like what delivery was going to be, what exactly the constraints were, what the business model constraints were, what problems needed to be solved. Like it was so obvious. So I had a very clear vision. But I just didn't know how to be a great leader. Like, it's more than just having a vision. You got to be able to translate that to actionable steps, get people around you to execute. Like, it is way more than that I didn't know at that time. I had never done it before. But ultimately, what I told him is that it really came down to the fact that we just kind of gave up on it. We really just stopped. That's all it came down to. We had the talent. We literally had the talent. We had the best engineering talent in Detroit, hands down. Seriously, like, I bet my life on that shit. At that point in time, best engineering team in the city of Detroit. Anybody at that time will tell you, like, we was killers on all sides. Like, we could have built anything. Yeah. So it wasn't about team. We had an incredible product. We had great demand. We just lacked the willpower to continue. That's literally what it came down to when I
100%. 100%. 100%. And honestly, that's a real, like, it's one thing to see somebody make mistakes and then learn from them. It's another to make the mistakes yourself and then be like, learn from those, you know? And that's a lot, like, those are things that, like, for us, we can look back and see that, like, because this was like, maybe at this point, 10 years ago, almost exactly on the dot, maybe a little bit more, you know, by like a few months, you know, like that call, like Dre said, that vision was clear. Like, most people cannot tell you a clear idea. Like, most people, and like, literally, for whatever reason, they cannot just tell you a clear idea. I don't even remember the exact words, but Dre told me the idea and it was just in my head. Like, and mind you, I was an engineer, so everybody's always calling me for ideas. Everybody's always trying to get me to build the next $1 trillion company, or like
they wanted that
like,
app.
Yeah, everybody wants the next app. Like, it's like, yo, I've heard a million ideas. Your idea is not special, and I guarantee you somewhere else.
You didn't even know iOS at the time. You only knew.
I didn't even know iOS. No, I didn't know iOS.
I'm trying to build this.
Yeah.
I was trying to build this. I'm trying to build this on iOS. Rodney was the engineer. I'm like, bro, come on, you're an engineer. You don't know iOS?
Yo, Dre, back then Dre definitely was unreasonable. Because Dre didn't know how to code back then. Dre knows how to code now. But Dre didn't understand that the languages were
I was like, come on, bro, how come you can't build this shit? And bro, he literally took that as a challenge and learned iOS.
Oh yeah, that made me mad. That made me mad, actually.
Like he knew Android, and like the next thing I knew, like, bro, he was so proficient at iOS. And then took a career as an iOS developer. That's a crazy.
Turned it into a career, actually, literally. Actually, no, Dre actually making me mad, gave me a multi-million-dollar career. Cause this was
that's crazy.
Yo, cause this is what happened. Like, so we ended up finding one of our friends introduced us to this young guy. His name is Noah, who was working at Taco Bell at the time, and he just so happened to be like this like talented engineer who was struggling in school. I think he went to Oakland, and we just met him. And from the first day that we met him, he just like started coding. He started building, and that's one thing that we didn't do. You know, like now with all the resources say like launch quick, you know, put things out there, but that wasn't like widespread at the time, especially like we're working in Detroit, Michigan. So the tech scene was just starting, just had started. And, you know, he started building the first, the first day. So like maybe like a week or 2 weeks in, you know, we love Noah and like, he's part of the team. And then Noah built something, right? It's a simple, like, it was like some login thing, right? It was like a log. I remember this shit. I still remember this shit. And I was like, everybody's going crazy. I was like, no, he's good, but it's just a login system. And then Dre and the team there was like, well, why haven't you built it? He was like,
that's a fair question though. That's a fair question.
It was fair. It pissed me off. It was fair. No, I had no answer. I didn't have a good answer. He was like, it was so easy. Why didn't you do it? And I was like, Dre, I can do that. That's not hard. He was like, why haven't you done it then? And I didn't have a good answer, right? And so that pissed me off, right? Because it was obvious, like I did know my capability, but Dre had a good point though. You know, if I'm an engineer and I know how to code well, and we want this to succeed, everybody needs to do what they can. You know, and that's ultimately what ended up, you know, me learning. You know, going from like making Android apps to iPhone apps, and you know, it was a struggle because I didn't have a MacBook at the time. I had to do some weird stuff with my Windows computer to like get it to have like a Mac running on it, and then like it was just like a whole. But I did it, And but yeah, no, we had the perfect market, perfect timing. Like Dre said, we had the best team in Detroit without a doubt. That's not.
You know what's crazy? You know what's the craziest thing now that I'm reflecting back on? During that period, right before I went off the second year of college. Well, I think I had just finished my second semester, and I was interning at Blue Cross and Blue Shield. Yeah. And I remember specifically emailing Michael Siebel from YC, the former CEO of YC, and we got on the phone. And I remember I was telling him, like, okay, we're doing this. Like, I pitched him very clear, very everything. Yeah. And the number one thing he told me at that time was, you guys need to move. You need to relocate to San Francisco. Yeah. That was the number one thing he told me, was like, you need to move. That's how important and critical environment was. He instantly told me that. I'll never forget that advice. I didn't listen to him at that time. I ended up moving to San Francisco eventually. And he was so right, because the moment I moved to San Francisco, being in such a competitive environment for the first time and around other people who wanted to do extraordinary things, just naturally, the type of person I am, just naturally motivated me, naturally pushed me to be better. And so my career instantly, like the amount of money I started making, literally 2, 3, 4x immediately once I got in that environment. And I can't imagine, like, at that time when I was 19 years old and I was talking to Michael, I was around 19 years old at that time. Had I moved to San Francisco, like, man, things would be, it'd be a totally different life. But, I'm still thankful. Eventually I got out there and I ended up getting the life that I wanted, right? Like, I wanted to found my own company again. I wanted to, like, be where I'm at, and I ended up getting there. But it was interesting how he gave me that advice. And now that I reflect back on it, I think about that as like a critical
what
point.
kept you from jumping?
Fear, man. Fear.
Yeah.
Just fear, unknown. Just didn't have, like, the financial support like that. It was hard for me to conceive, like, how am I going to make that? How am I going to make the move out there to San Francisco when, like, at the time I'm 19 years old, I'm still trying to go to school. Like, I'm taking out loans to go to school at this time, by the way. Like, I'm having my uncle co-sign for me to get to, just so I can, like, go through college. Yeah. It's just hard for me to conceive, like, how can I do that? But it
almost seems impossible. It almost seems impossible when you have those things going on. You have school, you have loans.
There's a lot.
Like, your parents are signing, like family signing on.
So let me throw this question at you, because obviously that first experience, that's probably your first time, really dealing with that kind of fear, those kind of unknowns. So now that you're a second time founder, you got some wisdom and some experience behind you. Like, what tools in your toolkit do you have to deal with fear and, like, the unknowns? I know, Rodney, one you gave to me was, like, fear setting, which I'm gonna keep it a stack. I share that doc with everybody.
Are you sharing?
So I'm just kind of curious, what other cheat codes? Yeah.
I got one. I got one simple one that the same guy I was telling you we was texting. He asked me. He was like, "What changed? Like, what? Do you have?" He asked me the question, "Do I have more willpower today? What is giving me more willpower?" And I told him, what it really comes down to for me is understanding that, failure in an idea doesn't mean that you're a failure as a founder. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it took me a long time to understand what failure really means and how to actually observe a failure, and then how to take that observation and apply it to the thing that I'm doing next. And so it took me a long time to, like, get through that cycle and get out of my own head. And so before, what would have taken me a long time to make a decision because I'm contemplating whether or not I'm going to fail, or I'm contemplating what's going to happen. Now I'm much more decisive now. I'm much more faster to just make a decision now. It's much more easier for me to just brush past the failure and just move on to the next thing now. Where I think of back then when I was 19 years old, like, failing meant everything. It meant like my whole life was crashing. Obviously that wasn't the reality, but again, when your world is so small and when you're inside your head, that's how you feel. So it's taken me a while and a lot of work to get to that level of, like, mentality, where now it's just like, dude, I don't give a fuck. If an idea fails, I'm on to the next thing. I don't care.
Facts. That's no, seriously. That fear part is a big part. And learning, like Dre said, giving up was the worst part. The right answer was to try again and be open to new things to try. Whereas we, because there are certain things that we couldn't conceive. For example, at that time, we couldn't conceive going to San Francisco as 19-year-olds that don't have any financial backing or anything like that, or 20, like we that's not something we could see back then. And so and even at that, like I tell this story to a lot of people, but and I don't even remember if I told this on this podcast before, but I knew Dre had talked to Michael from YC, but I wasn't on the call, so I never heard like how the call went. I didn't know how, like, who knows, how things would have went if I heard like this guy. Who knows? But it really was just Dre was the messenger, and there was like San Francisco was saying it, and you're just saying it, like you got to see it, and I remember like just being like not even open to it, like it's just like, no, we can just do what we can do right here, like nothing's wrong. We got a college, like you got Central, we got Michigan State right here, we got Wayne State, like and it was obvious just that everybody wanted stuff delivered, like college kids. Now here's the funny part: all the investors that we met up with in Detroit, they was all like, why would anybody want an app that can get stuff delivered? They was like, you trust strangers? They was like, and they just said so much bullshit, right? Like
we lost a pitch competition because this judge thought we couldn't handle payments. He's like, how are you going to do with payments? How are you going to process credit cards? Like, that's a lot of liability.
There's so much,
bro. There's like code that can do that. We use Braintree. He was like, yeah, but it's a lot of liability. That's how early it was. People still didn't even trust payments like that.
The truth is, he didn't even know what Braintree was. And so, so when we said that, like, that was one of the most heartbreaking losses. We had that because, like, I remember seeing Dre pitch, and I was like, this is like this. It was hands down the best pitch out of that, like, in that room. And I was like, there's no way like that this is not going to, like, and the idea they pitched was this crazy. I forgot what it was. It was like some jewelry weird like idea or whatever. Good for them, and we didn't get picked like out of the first round. And the guy, like, his reasoning, like Dre said, was, how are you guys going to build payments? We don't have to build payments. We don't have to build it. It's already built. We don't have to do that. And so the mere fact was that goes to show that the mindset that we were up against. The mindset we were up against in our environment was, well, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? What about this? What about that? That's the environment we grew up in. How are you going to do this? And so it's fear based. So the way that
if we had been in a different environment, who would have taken that and was like, I got what was like a team of 4 19-year-old black men, engineers that have built something. Like, come on, like, you would have taken that and like actually run with it. We had a product. We weren't pitching them on an idea. We weren't like, hey, we have this like wild idea. No, we actually had something.
Like we had something, and it was
again, I think that location and environment plays a huge factor, and just what you think is possible. Based on what you think is possible, right?
For sure.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, because I'm even thinking back to like my college experience where it's actually crazy. I had a similar experience to y'all where it was after I had interned in San Francisco and came back to Kansas. I was like, oh, you niggas ain't thinking this way.
They don't got their head on straight. Niggas not thinking like that.
You could already imagine what Kansas thinking is. And so I remember I was building a bank. Like, I actually had dropped out of school for a year. Yeah. And bro, while I was working on this, I was a part of it. It was called the Catalyst. And I did a similar pitch competition and things of that nature. Yeah. And I remember they had similar questions around like, bro, so how are you going to be a bank? And this is around the Chime. I don't know if y'all remember. This is when I think Chime had just came out. And,
I do remember. And I remember you. I think I remember you working on this actually.
Yeah,
and and I thought it was possible, and it was possible.
It was very possible, because this was the thing I had realized was they were just building software on top of established banks, so I didn't have to think about any of the regulations.
People did not realize you could build a bank for, like, what's this, like 3 years ago, 4 years, like 4 years ago.
This was
5 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 5.
About 5 years ago. Yeah, people don't realize it's just an interface. Like they had created software, in which case you could just
But I think it goes back to what you said. Like, environment is so important, not only because like obviously access to opportunities is one thing that is constrained based off your environment, but also that starts to like, when you're that young and you're doing your first thing, like that can start to create a lot of doubt because there's already a lot of fear, around like, should I be doing this? You know what I mean?
Everybody else is not doing what you're doing. You
they're not.
Go back to Kansas from San Francisco after how your year went in San Francisco. You looking around like, man, these like they don't get it, and it's not that they don't get it because they're trying not to get it. They are trying to understand it. That's for sure. I do believe a lot of people are trying to understand. They just can't because they. You know what? I'm not gonna say they can't. It's just that. It's so different from what they've seen that it's hard to even get to a point of understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to, because even when I first went to California, San Francisco was the first place I went to, and Dre literally bought me my ticket. I don't even know if Dre didn't buy my ticket, but I had been there. I remember going there. I'm like, this is different. And also when I got back, my ego was fucked up. My ego was fucked up when I got back. Let me tell you why though, because I thought I was like the best. I was already like at Ford. I'm like engineer, like I'm on the top of Detroit at like, you know what I'm saying? I'm riding around like by the way,
if you're in Detroit and you working at one of the auto companies or for Quicken, you've literally hit the pinnacle.
Yeah, you're working at auto company or Quicken or Rocket Homes, you're at the pinnacle. So I'm at this at like 19, 20. So I think I'm like the prince of Detroit. Right? I got a luxury
and you was driving a BMW. I'm gonna say you was driving a BMW.
So I really think I'm like the prince in this, like, you know what I'm saying? And so when I went to San Francisco, I was like, oh, I'm the little guy. I'm the little guy. I'm moving slow. Like these guys are moving fast. Like
no facts.
Like the time it took us to build our first we didn't have multiple versions of Run, but the time it took to even build the first version, in hindsight, is crazy compared to what we started seeing in California.
Facts.
Like I started seeing people come up with apps in two in a week. I'm like, you guys are making full blown apps in a week, like and it's taking us months just to get we can't compete.
Yeah.
Nah, this is one of the other things I had taken away from that experience as well was just like when I was in Kansas, building that first time, I remember like because I wanted to be the best, I thought, oh, let me just overbuild. It was this idea of overbuilding, where when you got out there to the Bay, like I remember, so I ended up finding some guys off Craigslist to stay with. Two guys, and one has started. One has started like an insurance company. They actually ended up selling, I want to say to Lemonade or whatever. And then another guy, he was a software engineer over at Pixar. But when I started seeing these guys, like the way they approached it, they would build something in a weekend, and it would literally just be like a form and some elements slapped together, and then they would just go put it out there in the world, and we'd be at the house, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" They're like, "Well, the app don't really work, and so I got to do it myself." But the users think it works. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
But
so the users think it works.
Paying them money.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was just a whole different mentality. It was like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like.
Let me add on to that. Right? That mentality right there, it doesn't have to be perfect. So one, like you said, you were overbuilding, wasting time. We were doing the exact same thing, right? Yep. Like just building too much. We have features that like Uber is just now putting in. Like we have features that like Uber Eats is like they're just now putting it in. And so we just thought we needed so much more. And then but I want to add on to that. I tell this story sometimes, I definitely told it to my girlfriend, just talking about like different random tech stuff, but like Reddit, right? For me is one of my it's like top 3 apps for me. You know what I'm saying? Definitely hands down. I've learned so much from it. Now, what people don't know about Reddit is that, I think there was a book based on it called like no permission or something like that. Like we don't have like something like you don't ask for permission or something like that. Either way it goes. One of the things that they talked about was that when Reddit first came out, because Reddit is a community-based product. For people that don't know, it's a community-based product. People come on, they have their own, avatar or anonymous or whatever the case, and people, they create communities around different subjects and topics. For example, they might have a community around like, you know, skincare. They might have a community around writing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a ton of information and knowledge on there. And also, there's also entertaining stuff too. So if you're into that, like funny stuff, funny shit, laugh, you can do that too. This is not what I'm on. But, you know, but look, Reddit, when they first started though, they had a problem because it's like, okay, we're building this community product. We don't have a community, right? Like we don't have a community. So what they did was they created like 100 fake user accounts. But these were like fake people. These weren't real people. But on the back end, it was like maybe like a handful of people that was just pretending to be people so that when people came in, they had, you know, something to interact with, engage with. You see what I'm saying? And so that type of mindset, that's something that most people won't think about, because they'd be like, well, why would you're being fake, or you're lying to. No, see, the thing is, a lot of people don't get, a lot of these companies and a lot of these products start off with some type of convincing lie, some type of convincing way to get you, some type of trick to get you, you know, in on it. And, you know, in business is business. But what I'll say is too, if you're going to do business, at least provide value. And I'm grateful that Reddit lied to those first 1,000 users. I'm incredibly grateful for that. And those 1,000 users are probably don't even care, you know? So it's just like, there are some things that people don't realize that you might have to do, or you can build less than you need to off jump to get to a good result in the end.
We could probably spend a whole episode in the future.
Nah, that's going 0 to 1.
Talking about how to like get initial traction, because I think there's a lot that I've learned about that from failing at it,
Facts.
From being successful at it, from working at early stage startups and seeing how they do it, from being at big companies like Disney and seeing how they go to market, right? Like there's a lot that I've learned about that, and I'm sure y'all have as well. So yeah, we can probably shed a lot of light on different ways to get that initial traction so that you can grow a community or whatever it is you're trying to build.
Yeah, even with the idea that I'm working on. Sorry
to interrupt, Brylan. The book is called "Without Their Permission," and it's made by Alexis Ohanian, which just so happens to be Serena's husband. I was about to say Serena's wife, but it's Serena's husband. He's one of the founders of Reddit.
Nice. I'll check that out. Go ahead, Brylan.
Nah, I got to check that out too. No, I was just gonna say it's actually crazy with the idea that I'm about to bring to market soon. I was recently reflecting on how, with some of the past, you know, companies and stuff, how I thought about go to market versus like now. It's totally different. It's totally different. And kind of what I would just share with people is, I think similar to like, you know, when you're a first time founder, you tend to overbuild. Yeah. When it comes to go to market, you usually tend to underestimate it or tend to think too big. And I think, you know, usually what Dre was just talking about earlier around fear, that fear is not only like fear of like, oh, I'm moving here and I may not have the money. But Paul Graham in his essay, do things that don't scale, he talks about that initial fear that a lot of YC companies have, where, you know, they're initially trying to target these big, broad markets. And he, you know, his recommendation is always do things that don't scale, start very niche, start very small. And he says the fear he always recognizes is they're afraid that they're not going to catch up to the competitors. Not realizing that like Google once had to do things that didn't scale in order to become Google, Facebook too. You know what I mean? And I think like one of the tricks that I'm applying now is not applying big time thinking to small time problems. And I think it comes just through humility and understanding that, like, yes, you may have this vision of like, this is some great, amazing thing that I do want to build, but tactically you are here today. And it is very humble to realize that you're just you're just one dot amongst all these other dots. And you may grow. And that's tough. You may like real talk. You may
real shit. Yeah.
But
That's facts.
we
They
can
say
unpack all that.
they say there's a saying in the Valley: first time founders focus on product, second time founders focus on distribution.
100%, 100%.
That's the saying.
So let me add on to what Brylan was saying about do things that don't scale. Right there. So I've been on many engineering teams, and one thing I will say, and this is a trap not just for pre-seed, seed companies or Series A. This can be a trap on almost every stage, especially when you're starting something new. It could be it's just a new project. Period. You'll go into a company. It'll be a startup, and they have maybe 1,000 users, and they are trying to build an infrastructure that will scale to millions. Now I sit back, I say, you have 1,000 users. Why do you need infrastructure that can scale to millions? And and unfortunately, in hindsight, if you guys had to guess, are any of these companies at 1 million users? Are any of these companies at 1 million users? If you had to guess.
Nah, probably not.
But
Brylan?
No, 100%. But this is the thing: is a lot of, I feel like when you're a first time founder, most of the time your learnings have not, you have no experience. You just got to be very humble about that.
Thanks.
And the lie that you're telling yourself is that you're going to have a big moment. And guess what the truth is? No big moment exists. It is the accumulation of small things compounded over time. That is it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what leads to that trap of like overbuilding, like, thinking like you just said, you know what kind of, know how the math got to work for you to go from 1,000 to
exactly. You know how much time we're going to spend on this? Like, do you know how much technical time and money they're spending? And like you said, the math that's required. Like, we don't even have. How do we test 1 million? How do we test for 1 million users if we only have 1,000? So what people don't get is that a lot of times.
Yeah, I think
because you gotta put it into perspective. But people, they make this mistake all the time, though.
Mm-hmm.
They make everybody they think that there's a moment where it's gonna go. No, it's not gonna happen like that. It's never gonna happen like that. Actually, a good story. Actually, before we started Run, I had got back from college and I went to the Google Play Store because I had launched some apps while I was in high school right before I graduated. And one of those apps had over 200,000 people who had downloaded it. I think it was like 250,000 or a little bit more. It's some change. And there was 25,000 active users, right? Now, when I built that, dude, you guys think that I built that thinking that 25 people will be using it at like in any given moment. I never even considered that. And so what I could do though is as it scales, build upon it, and so you can't waste a lot of time overbuilding. I just really want to emphasize it because I see it so many times and I'll be honest right now, for me, I'm in a weird state. And let me explain what I mean by that. In my company, I actually have to move counter to most of the ways I've moved my entire life when it comes to building software and products. And the reason I say that is because the idea to build something and then come out with it right away is like how I've always moved for the most part. There's been a couple projects along the way that I didn't, but for the most part, every product that I put out there, I built it in a quick amount of time and I put it out there, like not perfect. Now, with Safe, I have this battle because this is a unique situation. And let me explain why I believe it's unique. And maybe you guys can share your perspective. But this is just me kind of like just going off the top of my head. Safe is a security product. And so therefore, Safe needs to work. It needs a certain baseline level of functionality. Otherwise, the brand can't be trusted. The security literally is all about trust. See, with all these other products, right, that I made, they didn't people wouldn't feel no type of way about it not working. Safe is the equivalent of you buying a lock for your door and somebody the next day walks in and you're like, I bought the lock. I bought the lock. I went as far as to buy the lock. I bought the lock. But safe, we're in a unique situation because everything that I know about building and have done is a little bit counter to the position we're in today. And so we have to balance that. So while trying not to be on the other side of building too much. And so I think what we think about for those founders that happen to be in maybe certain things like, if it's security or it could be healthcare, I'm sure healthcare could be similar in some ways. Like certain things need to work before they come out. Obviously, Theranos got so far. I don't know how Theranos got away with I don't know how they got away with that, but you should naturally before you come out with a security or a healthcare product, there should be a baseline level of stability. But you do need to avoid overbuilding still.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to understand, right? Like the product, where you play in the market and the type of product and the severity, the risk that's at stake with your product, right? And the speed you can move, right? Like if you're a car manufacturer, you probably should move at a certain speed to make sure you're building a safe car. You know what I'm saying? Like you shouldn't be moving at a speed of a software company trying to build a fast moving hardware.
You know
product.
what? That happens. Actually, that happened. I believe that happened at Bird. I believe
I can see that.
That's a great point, Dre. I believe at Bird we had people from Uber, and they had the hustler mentality. They had the hungry part. They had the talent. But I think what it seems like happened is they moved as if Bird was a software product, and it wasn't. You can't just come out because the thing is, when you start to scale a hardware product in any way, it's out there and it's going to be out there for a while.
Yep.
Because it's physical. And software has the luxury of updating along the way, updating live. These hardware products, they don't have that luxury. So you do have to be a little bit more. There has to be a cutoff, and founders and CEOs need to understand what that. Founders and CEOs need to understand what that cutoff is.
Yeah. Nah, and I think I just building off of what we're talking about, understanding what kind of product or company that you're building. Based off of that, I'll also think this second go around, this next go around, it's also impacting my speed to go fundraise. And I think when you're a first time, when you got that founder bug and you let me go jump in this game. You just got an idea. You ain't tried to build it. You ain't tried to get some feedback on it. See what if a market even exists. You just think you need money, and money is going to make everything work.
Yes.
And it doesn't, because at the end of the day, money is the easiest thing to go get because there is plenty of it out there.
There's a lot of it.
Don't get me wrong, there definitely are barriers. We can go look at the statistics or whatever, but once you get the money, the whole game, you're playing a whole different game. And I think it's very important, and this is something I'm just very cognizant of now, is understanding when to take money. Take money. And most of the time you don't need if you're building software, most of the time you don't need the money out the gate because you haven't even validated why that money is even valuable to you. And just as fast as you got it can go out the door. And I'm telling you that from experience. Because at the end of the day, going back to what you said, you're probably thinking, you're probably overbuilding. You're probably trying to go after a market that is too big. At the end of the day, business is a math game. So if you're overbuilding, you're probably spending too much, investing capital there. If you're going after too big of a market, you're probably doing things that these big companies that are doing, such as going to conferences, paying for ad, these big 50,000 ad campaigns and things like that. And it's bro, you haven't even done the simplest thing of proving that a market even exists. You're still in your head. And I think that's what separates the second time founders from the first time founders as well, is you got to go get in the world instead of being in your head. And going and being in the world, it doesn't take money. It takes heart.
Yes.
Because you know how hard it is to go talk to somebody and they tell you what you think. Nah, that ain't true.
Yeah. A lot of people tell you,
exactly.
And you got to do it over and over again.
Over and over.
Man, you preaching that actually takes me back. Like I can still see it vividly in my mind. When we were doing Run Delivery Company, we were talking. I was doing a customer call with this restaurant owner that runs one of the most popular delis in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I think it's called like I can't think. I
remember this.
It's like it's one of the most popular delis. They're doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue. They're huge, and we wanted to do delivery for them. And I just remember again, like I'm 18, 19 years old. I've never done a real customer interview. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how to really take tough questions. He wasn't even asking me severe questions. He was asking questions like how y'all can keep the food hot and like just basic questions. But I was just like I was so emotionally charged by some of the questions that he was asking. I couldn't even like receive. I couldn't even receive it. I couldn't even receive it, and it just killed the momentum. It just killed the momentum of the conversation.
It's hard.
But yeah, it just goes back to like you got to do those reps, right? Instead of doing that one call and being like, you know what, I'm not going to do that again, or all right, I'm a not tell people my idea. I'm not going to pitch it because it's going to get attacked. He's not attacking me. You know what I'm saying? He's just challenging the idea. He's just trying to understand the idea. I should take that and be like, okay, let's just do more reps.
So this is another thing I would say. Once you got some experience under your belt, like this is a hard truth to accept too. The first time you try to do this, you move with the energy that you know. The second time you do this, you start with the energy of I don't know. Mm-hmm. And so like each rep now that you're getting, it's a piece of data, it's a piece of information that is building confidence. And I think that's the difference.
It lowers your ego. I think it lowers your ego naturally.
That's facts.
It lowers your ego naturally. You have to humble yourself because people are going to tell you no. Yeah, because originally when you first come out the gate, especially if you're a first time founder, oh my God, I've seen. I talked to so many first time founders, man. You could not it's very rare actually to get through to a first time founder. It's the nature of a founder. Because of the nature of a founder.
Hey, it was hard to get through to you your first time too.
It was. That was the point of the story I just said. Like it was tough, right? Like had that been today, it would have been a whole different thing. We would have got that customer. Like it would have been a whole different thing. Yeah. First time founder, it wasn't clicking.
You can't like you're going to come into it. And you think you can just bulldoze your way and just make somebody give you your money, or you can just cold email 500 people and somebody's going to get you. It's just not going to go that way. And also, when people challenge your ideas, it's like they're challenging things that other people probably haven't said yet. For whatever reason. Because their job is to really I'm not going to tell everybody what their job is. I'm going to tell them this is what their job is, but I'll say what they often do. They often look for holes in what you're saying. They often look for why this won't work. There are VCs that try to focus on why this will work. There are those VCs. Those are what we call the good ones, the great ones. But we obviously know everybody's not great at their job, right? So that's just a fact in general. So that defensiveness comes up. And also it can be confusing too. Because sometimes, like this is something actually I learned too. This was actually a very key thing that I learned. My defensiveness originally blocked me from realizing certain information, but also realizing that there are certain conversations that I had more control over than I thought. So, for example, I would come out and I would explain. We would go through the typical, hey, how are you doing? How did you meet? Et cetera, et cetera. They tell a little bit about their firm. I ask them some questions. Then we get into the story, my story, and the story of Safe, right? And there was times when investors would ask me questions, and my immediate way that I was kind of like going about things was like defensive. Like, how do I defend whatever it is? And so even in cases though when the question wasn't even valid though, you see what I'm saying? And so I remember one day I just sat back and I started thinking about like some of the things that like some investors had said to me, and I realized I was like, that's not even a valid question. That's not even a valid question. But because I'm already going off the ego and defensiveness, I'm just trying to defend it no matter what it is. I'm not even thinking that, I'm not even absorbing it fully, And so I learned this tactic as a founder, and this is a small tip to any founder who talks to a lot of investors. When they ask you a question, one, don't accept or dismiss it right away. Listen to it, process it, and then respond to it. Do not react to it. And what I ended up doing was asking for clarification on a lot of questions. And what I realized is that a lot of VCs ask questions that don't make sense. They ask a lot of questions that don't make sense. And if you are defensive and you cannot see, if you cannot get out of that mindset, you will not even realize that the question itself doesn't even make sense. And now you're defending something that doesn't even, like, you're defending, and it only lowers your chance of getting money, right? And whereas, for example, when you flip the question back on, like to clarify the question, now one, you turn it into, I'm not defensive, but I'm seeking understanding. I'm trying to understand your question. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. I'm not just responding to what you're saying. I'm trying to understand it. And then when you turn to that, oftentimes you realize, like, hold on, like there's some type of misunderstanding here, like this, because this question doesn't even make sense, and oftentimes when I asked them to clarify, they were just like, they was thinking about it for a second, and then like, okay, never mind, just continue.
Right.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. I wish I did this like from the jump, like, but you live and you learn.
I'm not gonna lie, you preaching on there, and something while you're talking about VCs, this is something like founders listening to the podcast need to take away as well. When you're a first time founder, you think these VCs are in the game to change the world. They are in it to make money.
Right.
That is it. So the way you approach those conversations are totally different. They're asking their question. They're like, and you start to understand the reason why they're asking certain questions is it all ties back to the dollar.
Yes.
And so the way I've approached it now is I went and understood, like, bro, I went and had to go understand everything about finance. How do investment bankers think? How do equity analysts think? Not to like say I want to like do that stuff, but to understand if this is the end in which VCs are trying to get companies to, let me reverse engineer to understand how they're thinking at the beginning. Yes, because at the end of the day, like that, and I feel like I've talked to so many founders who, they feel like they have amazing ideas, and you may have amazing ideas, but then your dreams get shut down when a VC says no or whatever. Yeah. And at the end of the day, and that's what I like about this bear market. I will say this downturn is forcing founders to get to the fundamentals and to think very pragmatic. And I think that's very important. And I think second time founders just naturally get that because from the outset, they understand that just getting a user is not enough. Yeah. Value is dictated by the money that is exchanged. So how we breaking bread. And so you could so now I'm not going to no VC talking about like, hey, bro, this is what my wait list look like, or that's cool. Yeah. This is what my dollars look like. Yeah. It's a totally different conversation.
Yeah. Especially at the stage, like keeping in mind the stage, right? Like
the stage, bro.
Because the wait, like for example, like if you're a founder, listen to Brylan and make money as soon as possible. Dre has actually already done this with his company. Whether or not
bro, you remember when Dre sent us the chart of the money? I don't know if you remember.
Yeah. I was like, Dre, keep doing, keep going. I was like, keep going. Whatever you're doing, just keep going, keep doing it. And so like definitely do that. And also understand that if you are going to talk about wait lists, understand that there's really only one stage where that will like might hold some weight, and then the second stage, which would be pre-seed, but it's very unlikely the wait list is going to hold. It's not going to hold enough weight for you forward. To get. Yeah. Going at seed stage is very, very unlikely that the wait list itself is going to move the needle. Like it's very unlikely because the question now is going to be like, well, why are, like, it's okay. So then or how are people using, like, are you letting people in, or like, how are they using the product? Is it leading them, like, where's the vision around making, like, is not enough, even though it's good to have a wait list. Don't get me wrong, but it's easy for a wait list to go stale too. A wait list can go stale. So,
bro, you preaching.
There's a lot of factors in that. There's a lot of factors in that. But in this game though, VC, and also, Brylan, what you basically just told people to do is, because you said you went to study finances, et cetera, you basically just told them to told founders to study their customer. Because at the end of the day, VCs are customers are our shares, right? So at the end of the day, if I'm coming up to a VC, I need to understand
That's
them
facts.
as a customer. So I'm really selling them shares. So I mean, you're just saying that in a different way.
And I say the last thing I'll add before we wrap up, and we could probably do a whole nother episode on this because I've been diving more into this world, is that there's other ways of like being a founder, right? Like, or just being able to run a business without having to start it. And I think many people are made to go from 0 to 1 and actually build something.
Yeah.
And some people are just made to be great operators of an existing business. And so buying an existing business and just going to be an operator of that business is a real viable path that people literally can take. Like you can literally finance up to 90%, sometimes 100% of the total cost of buying a business. Meaning like today, if you could go and run a business today that's doing $1 million or $1.5 million in revenue, doing 300,000 in profit, that's not a bad business to go and take today, right? Like already set up and ready to go. So there's a viable path there. We have a good friend of ours. I won't mention his name because he ain't ready to come out yet, but he just bought his second business. And I'm seeing the way that he's building his company as a founder. And it's totally different than what I'm doing, totally different than what we're doing. But it is a viable path, and it's really working. And they're doing a shit ton of revenue in a short amount of time, and have actual equity built into their company, and haven't had to give up a single share in equity.
Yeah, man. Well,
there's a lot of things we need to unpack deeper, bro.
That's a good one to end.
That's why we got a podcast.
There's multiple ways to do it.
That's why we got a podcast. But yeah, no, this was a good one, y'all. So let's wrap it up.
For sure.